A couple weeks ago, I got a very unique phone call. Here, one of my staff members that I worked with gave me a call and told me that an ESPN producer was on the line and wanted to know if they could license some footage from us. Now, this individual, if you meet her, she's pretty dry humor. She's a great asset to our team, but she's not one to really kind of jerk your chain. So I knew there was definitely something in this story that I had to take a listen to. So I gave the phone number a call back, and sure enough, it was the ESPN producer. ESPN is filming a game here in Lambeau. 49ers are playing the Packers in Green Bay at Lambeau Field this Monday night. And what was pretty exciting about this is every Monday Night Football game that they do, they try to do different features about the community, the players that are on that team. In this case was no different. What they are looking to do is kind of play off of the Mr. Rogers neighborhood. Now, if you can think back to the days of watching PBS television, you could think of that song of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. That's what they want to try to accomplish here with this pre-roll for Monday Night Football game. Packers play the 49ers. And it so happened that they had been online searching through different animations in Wisconsin and trying to find some different effects of Lambeau Field, and they came across some footage that I had done about 1.5 years ago. So about 1.5 years ago, I got this crazy idea. How cool would it be to do a miniature video of Marshfield, the downtown? And sure enough, we did this little video. As you're watching it now, you can see that there has that neat effect where the downtown here in Marshfield looks like a digital miniature. And they wanted to create that same effect for Lambeau Field in Green Bay. Now, what is very unique about tilt shift photography is that it's all about taking this illusion that whatever you're looking at looks miniature. And you can do that in a number of different ways. You can actually buy an expensive lens that you can mount to your camera, or you can do it in post-production by adding some different effects to your video or photography. What is tilt shift photography? Essentially is a very simple concept. You're taking a normal image, a photo, and you're tilting it back a little bit to create the first part of that tilt shift image. Now with a drone, when you're flying in an altitude, a respective altitude over your object, you want to make sure that that camera has anywhere from like a 15 to 40 degree angle, and that represents the same thing as taking this flat image and tilting it back. The idea is you want to create more depth of field in your shot so that as you create those blur lines on the top and bottom of your screen, the person watching sees more depth to the object that you're essentially focusing on, which would be that middle ground. Now that middle ground, what we want to do with that is we want to create a little bit of a shift. Sometimes what you want to do is you want to make that have more contrast. Usually you want to try to make more saturation in the photo and clear up the lines that we see in the structures themselves. So a lot straighter lines, more rigid edges. So when you do that little effect where you take a tilt and then you mess around with that middle ground, that's what gives you the animation. So take a look at some of the photos and video after production now. You can see from this footage and the footage we first showed you, there's a clear difference. The objects in the foreground are definitely kind of warped, but they're blurred out so you can't tell. The objects in the back of the photo is blurred, but they're tilted so you see more depth. And those objects in the center have that miniature look. So between the foreground and the background is where that tilt shift effect or that miniature effect is really being seen. Bumping up the contrast, increasing the saturation of those colors, and definitely sharpening those images in the middle of the photo are definitely going to make that effect more and more present. So what they were hoping for, and what ESPN was after, was trying to make a model of Lambeau Field in the community around Lambeau Field. It's very unique, and you see this if you've been to a Packer football game. You'll notice that the tailgating, people parking on neighbors' lawns, people grilling out in their own backyards is a very, very interesting aspect of going to a football game in Green Bay. So the B-roll that's going to roll on the Monday Night Football game is essentially just that. It is Green Bay as we know it as a miniature. Now, when I was talking to the producer, I said, well, so what's your ideas? What are you looking for? And we talked about strategy and what different shot counts that we wanted. There was definitely concerns. I mean, if you guys have been paying attention to central Wisconsin here in the last 2 weeks, it's been pretty much raining every single day. I think this is one of the very few days that I've actually seen some sun pour into my office window here. That was one of the things that was definitely going to be a little bit of a challenge, is make sure we have good weather for flying. Now, if you're a drone pilot or someone that is in aerial photography, you know there's a whole bunch of rules and regulations that go into play whenever you fly a drone, especially in an area like Green Bay where there's commercial airspace. So we definitely had to make some calls to the ATC and make sure we have all our authorizations in place so we could fly that shoot. So what happens if we couldn't do this? That was the question that I was constantly asking. Well, if I can't do this for you, what is your ideas? And their idea was real simple. They were going to build a model of Lambeau Field in the surrounding community. So I'm pretty excited that we were able to do this for them, and that it is part of the B-roll package that plays for the Green Bay versus the 49ers game here on ESPN this Monday night. But how do we do it? That is the question. I've had a couple dozen people reach out to me since the commercial rolled against the Badger game, showing that this was actually going to be part of the 7 o'clock pre-roll. And the answer is actually really easy, but sort of complicated. Going over to Green Bay was the easy part, and honestly, it was the most enjoyable part of this whole process. As you're looking at some of the footage now, you can see that the aerial footage that we did was just straight up aerial footage. Now, it wasn't sunny, there was tons of clouds and overcast in the sky, but we felt confident that using this footage and under this type of post-production, we were still get the same effect that we wanted. But the real work came when we got done with the shoot and started heading home. Now, every second of video that you're going to see has 30 frames in it. Every minute has 30 frames times 60 seconds. So you can imagine, to watch a 1-minute video, how many individual pictures it takes to make that animation take place. What we had to do is take every single one of those photos, open them up into a photo editor, and adjust the color and the contrast and the blur for each individual photo. We had to take all of those photos, export them out of the video, and in some cases the average minute was just over 2,000 photos, put those into a photo editor, adjust the contrast, the color, and create that blur effect that gives you that 3D animation miniature look. Take all of those photos, export them out of the photo editor, and then enter them back into a time sequence, which we were using Adobe Premiere. In Adobe Premiere, we were able to take that time sequence. We were then able to make a further adjustment and export those 2,000 photos to make 1 minute of video. Now, we did this about a dozen times, 11 to be exact, so we could get enough different B-roll of us showing the miniature effect of different areas around Lambeau Field, different points of interest of Lambeau Field in itself. So we're pretty excited to see the end product. It was definitely a fun opportunity, and it was great to see that this footage was licensed to ESPN. I'm excited. So let's take a look at the footage now and see exactly what it is.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you be my neighbor? Day for a beauty, would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor?
So I hope you took a look at that and you thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I encourage you to get out and watch the Monday night game tonight. It's going to roll just before 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. So with that being said, thanks guys for everything and support, and we'll see you again.